Good morning and welcome to the Abingdon Health PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. And now I'd like to hand you over to Chris Hann, Chairman. Good morning, sir.
Good morning and good morning everyone. Thanks for joining to listen to the presentation of our results for the year ended June 2024. I'm Chris Hann, the Chairman of the company, and I'm joined by Chris Yates, the CEO. The first slide gives you an introduction to our board. Myself, my background is in medical diagnostics, 30 plus years in the sector, and previously founded and grew a company in the medical diagnostics lateral flow sector called Cozart, which we floated on AIM as we have with Abingdon Health, sold that company, and then created Abingdon Health. So my background, as I say, is in medical diagnostics. I'll hand over to Chris to introduce himself, and then I'll talk about Mary and Max, our other board attendees.
Thanks, Chris. Morning, everyone. I'm Chris Yates. I'm the CEO. As Chris mentioned, I co-founded Abingdon in 2008 with Chris. My background is diagnostics for the best part of 20 years now, including directorships with Immunodiagnostic Systems and Cozart. And prior to that, I was in finance.
Our other board member, Mary Taverner, she's our senior independent non-exec and chair of the audit committee. Mary has a background in finance. She was CFO of AIM-listed Advanced Medical Solutions, and she's a qualified accountant. Max Duckworth is a board observer, was a board member prior to IPO. He's an impact investor based in the United States, and he's got a lot of complementary experience to the other board members, and was previously a senior executive in a Fortune 500 energy company. So we've got a good mix and blend of skills across the board. However, we are now looking to further strengthen our board by the recruitment of a CFO and the recruitment of another independent non-executive director. Both of those processes are now underway. So the presentation, we'll go through an introduction, give you information on the market and an overview, some highlights of our preliminary results, and then talk a bit more about some recent acquisitions we've done, our key strategic initiatives, and then we'll come on to a summary of all that and information on Outlook. So at this point, I'll hand over to Chris Yates, who will take you through the next stage of the presentation. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. So by way of background, we're a dedicated lateral flow CRO and CDMO. We effectively try and provide all the different pieces of the jigsaw to allow a customer to take an idea all the way through to commercial success. One of the key things that we've been doing over the past couple of years is expanding our service proposition into related areas, such as regulatory, analytical laboratory service, but also things like packaging design, packaging service, and also commercialization, so supporting customers in getting products to market. To broaden and deepen our regulatory service over the past 6 months or so, we've acquired two businesses, the first being Ideology, which we acquired in May 2024 for up to 0.7 million. That was paid for in shares. And also, shortly after the year end, we acquired Compliance Solutions Life Science Group for up to 3.2 million. And that was following a successful placing as well for 5.6 million. And Compliance Solutions, again, is a regulatory service group and with a particular focus on the US and will support our expansion plans into the US going forward. And then the final point is we're sufficiently funded now following the placing to support our next growth phase of the business. And I'll come on and talk about some of those initiatives over the following few slides. So just to give you some context on Abingdon and its market. So the lateral flow market, which is the main focus of our CRO and CDMO business, is large and growing. It's a 23 billion market. And I think what's important is that product mix continues to change. So COVID obviously was a big driver of volumes of lateral flow tests particularly in 2020, 21, 22. But actually what we're now seeing is that mix change towards the use of lateral flow in lots of different areas. I think the key advantages of the technology is it's very simple, cost effective and easy to use, and supports really the drive towards decentralization of testing. And that can be in clinical, but also in non-human healthcare areas such as animal health, plant pathogen, food testing and environmental testing. And really we set out to be a knowledge leader in lateral flow technology and provide innovative solutions to our customers under a fee-for-service business model. We are looking to expand our presence within the US to really kind of take some of the opportunities in what is the largest medical diagnostic market globally. It accounts for about 39% of the global market. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, we've also broadened our market reach now with the two acquisitions of the regulatory services business. I think one thing to note is Compliance Solutions Group provide regulatory solutions not just to the IVD market, but also to the broader medical device market. And that allows us to obviously expand the opportunity for the group in terms of revenue growth. In terms of our strategy, it's really twofold. So it's the two sections on the left. So the lateral flow CRO and CDMO is a core focus. That accounts for just about 90% of our revenues at this stage. And as I mentioned, the key there really is to continue to expand our service proposition and grow our customer base. We'll come on and talk a bit later about some of the expansion that we're doing in terms of building our own analytical laboratory service, but also establishing our presence in the US as well. And we will continue to look at opportunities to grow by acquisition, albeit that our kind of immediate focus is to consolidate the two acquisitions that we've already done. On the right-hand side, self-testing continues to be a growth area in the lateral flow market, and we offer a sales and distribution platform to our CDMO customers, but also to other customers, and we work very closely with a number of retailers, probably at the moment in the UK, but strategically we're looking to obviously expand that initially into Europe and into the US over time as well. And obviously we're very, very pleased with some of the progress that we've made over the course of the last year, particularly with the relationship that we've got with Crest Medical and Boots. Okay, so just turning to the final results and the financial highlights for the year ended 30th of June 2024. So we saw strong commercial progress across the group. So our revenues for the year were 52% ahead of the prior year. We had a couple of months of IVDology revenues in there, so excluding that acquisition, revenue growth was 49%. And H2 was particularly strong with revenue growth of 55% compared to H1 2024. And our gross margin saw improvement as we got the benefits of gearing and putting more products through and more services through. And then the final point to note really is that our Q4 was cash flow positive, which obviously is a very positive signal for us. I think in terms of drilling down into that, the revenue came from a diverse range of CDMO customers across our service offering. So we saw revenue growth across the board really in terms of contract development, technical transfer, manufacturing, and also obviously we saw revenue coming in as well in areas such as regulatory, which was a relatively new service for us over the course of the last 12 months. Cash balance was 1.4 million at the end of the year, and we obviously raised 5.1 million net of expenses post year end as well, which leaves us with a cash balance of post acquisitions of 4.5 million at the 4th of October. Adjusted EBITDA losses reduced significantly to 1.1 million compared to 2.9 million the previous year, and we anticipate solid revenue growth in this financial year as well. And our priority remains on moving the group towards a sustainably positive cash flow position. So just turning to some of the operational highlights outlined in the financial results as well. So in terms of our CRO and CDMO revenue business, that saw 51% revenue growth. We were pleased to see a number of products transfer from development phase into manufacturing. So Diagnostics, a saliva pregnancy test, LukeDX, a sepsis test, and Upfront Diagnostics, a stroke test, all transferred successfully during the year. And that's really one of the key priorities for us is really to move those development projects through into manufacturing customers. They tend to be very sticky as manufacturing customers, and we build long-term relationships, and it almost turns into a degree of annuity income for us. On the product side, we saw good progress in 2024, and particularly the second half, actually. So overall revenues were up about 56% year on year, but importantly, we launched 3 tests with Boots, one of them being our CDMO customer Salagnostics saliva pregnancy test, which is branded under Boots' own label. And we also introduced with Crest Medical 2 additional products to Boots, a vitamin D test and an iron ferritin test. And it was really great to partner with both Crest and Boots to bring these products to market. Target for this financial year and beyond is to continue to expand that product range and also broaden our sales and distribution channel, both in the UK, but also, I think, importantly, going forward into Europe as well. We also announced in the results our expansion into the US. We are looking to open a commercial office and R&D lab in Q4 of this calendar year, and we're very excited about that opportunity for us to really build our US presence. We have around a third of our revenues derived from the US at the moment, and that will also grow with the integration of Compliance Solutions, which also has a big US presence as well. And we see the US as a major market opportunity for us going forward. And then finally, the placing allowed us to really target investment both in product development and the analytical lab service expansion, which we'll come on and talk about a bit later. So just turning to the recent acquisitions, which I touched on earlier. So the first one was the acquisition of Ideology in May. So that was a Kent-based UK provider of regulatory services to the IVD market. It was 8 people within that business, and we were already working closely with Ideology in a number of projects. We know the team there very well, and we're really delighted to bring those into the group. Highly complementary in terms of our ability to offer those services to our existing customers and vice versa for Ideology to offer our services to theirs as well. So we see great opportunity there. I think the focus of Ideology really is around the UK and the European markets, so the IVD/IVDR markets. And as you may know, that those are going through a significant state of transition at the moment. And that transition really creates opportunity for us to provide services to allow customers to outsource all of the regulatory requirements they need to fulfill to get products to market and also maintain products on the market as well. The second acquisition was the acquisition of Compliance Solutions, which was completed in the end of August 2024. So Compliance Solutions, again, is a regulatory service provider. It's a broader service provider in the sense that it provides its customers are IVD customers, but also the broader medical device market as well. It offers services to those customers, and it provides a real range of services from building quality management systems, preparing technical documentation for regulatory submission, all the way through to supporting clinical trials as well. So again, Compliance Solution was a business that we had worked with for a number of years. We knew the team there very well, great reputation, and so again we were delighted to acquire Compliance Solutions. And I think we see great opportunities to support Compliance Solutions with its customer base in the US, and also for Compliance Solutions to support Abingdon's customer base in the US as well going forward. So we see good cross-selling opportunities with both of those recently acquired businesses. Okay, so just touching on the expansion into the US and the management changes that we announced in the financial results. So we're planning to open a commercial office in Q4 of this calendar year, so basically by Christmas. And the reason for that is the US is obviously the largest diagnostic market globally, accounting for about 39% of the global market. It's an area that we've been really active in already. As I said, about a third of our revenues come from the US in terms of the kind of Abingdon Health group pre the acquisitions. And Compliance Solutions is already very active in supporting customers getting FDA approvals in the US. And we see big opportunity. There's a lot of investment gone into the US through various government initiatives such as BARDA and RADx. A lot of that funding needs to stay within the US, and therefore by building a lab presence that allows us to service customers within the US and should open up more of the market for us going forward. In order for us to kind of really target that opportunity, my focus going forward would be on global commercial growth and management of those US operations. I'm delighted to say that Chris Hand has agreed to transition from non-exec chair to executive chair to support and manage the day-to-day operations of the group in the UK. And those changes will be effective from next week. And alongside that, we are also looking to strengthen the board further. So we are looking to bring in recruit a new CFO and also an additional independent non-exec director, and both of those processes are ongoing.
Thanks, Chris. The recent funding, we set out use of funds to include product development and also establishment of an analytical laboratory. Examples of what we're looking to do with product development is really to bring enhanced technology and enhanced offering to our CDMO customers, but also to look at the development of our own standalone products. I've listed 3 examples here of current activity. The first is the combination of our existing product, the PCRD, which is a PCRD detector, a lateral flow device which measures the output from a PCR reaction on site. And we're seeing a lot of interest, and we've been promoting a lot lately the combination of that test alongside the isothermal amplification or PCR as it's known. And that combination, we're looking to bring that PCR testing closer to the patient or closer to the need. And we're looking at various projects currently with this technology, not only in human health, but also in animal and other sectors. Another development which we've previously announced is the use of non-plastic cassettes, and we've created the EcoFlow system with our partners at Marama. We're looking at ways in which we can exchange plastic for plant-based material or not, basically non-plastic material. That's an ongoing process. We've got the first parts out, which we're evaluating, and we've got a lot of interest from our both current customers and new customers in exchanging the plastic waste that we all see across the lateral flow market with non-plastic material. And then the third area, as an example of technology that we're developing, is our patented AppDX. AppDX is a smartphone-based lateral flow reader. It's based on machine learning, and what the system does is the algorithms will first, after being trained, will interpret the result of a lateral flow test and capture it, send it wherever it needs to be sent, and removes the subjectivity you might see from a visual interpretation. So those are 3 examples amongst others of the product developments we're engaged in, and we'll report back in due course with progress on each of these. The other area of expansion that really forms a bridge between our current CDMO activity and the acquisitions, the regulatory activity, is our analytical laboratory. Following the development of a test and to allow it to be regulatory approved, we need to do a lot of evaluation and comparison to other methods to allow approval by the likes of the FDA or to gain CE marking via the IVDR process. And what our laboratory will do, as I say, is bring mesh together the CDMO offering and the regulatory approval offering that we now have via IVDology and CS Life Sciences. The type of activity that we'll be doing, and this will be at our Doncaster facility, is to look at the stability of the product, look at how it, the sort of standard technical evaluations really, so detection limits, interference, cross-reactivity. Importantly, what this lab and our regulatory offering will do is allow us to look at adjacent markets such as PCR, which I've mentioned already, isothermal amplification, and other antibody and antigen detection immunoassays, including those used at point of care. So that's, as Chris has said earlier, is scheduled for the next 3 to 6 months to be fully up and running, but we'll start pretty much straight away, and we're currently fitting out the Doncaster facility to be able to offer this service. And then summary and outlook. As you've seen, we've had solid commercial progress with revenues 52% ahead of last year. The acquisitions of iVideology and Compliance Solutions really do enhance our service offering and bring the one-stop shop to our customer base. The addition of the laboratory services, as I've just said, will further enhance that. We expect continued solid revenue growth in this financial year 2025 through to June. And the expansion into the USA and the management changes that we've just described will support this growth plan. We're very excited about the USA opportunity, and we're sufficiently funded to support this next phase of growth. So that concludes the presentation. We'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you both very much for your presentation. If I may just bring back up your cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. Just while the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via our investor dashboard. As you can see, we received a number of questions throughout today's presentation. And Paul, could I please ask you to read out the questions and give responses where appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that we did have a couple of questions that unfortunately the company can't answer. These are specifically about commercial arrangements, so they couldn't be disclosed because of confidentiality and commercial sensitivity. So apologies if those aren't addressed. One of the questions that I have, Chris, is about Salistic and the availability in markets outside of Nordics, UK and Israel. They're not available outside of those. Could you give an indication of when that will be?
So Salignostics is the company that owns the Salistic brand and product. Obviously, we're supporting them in terms of the CDM activities and also distributing the product into the UK in a number of retailers, including Boots and Superdrug as well. Salignostics' strategy is to build slowly. Obviously, we're keen to support Salignostics in growing the number of markets that which Salistic is in. That is a continued kind of agenda point in our discussions with them, and hopefully in due course we're able to support them in expanding into new territories.
Thank you. I have a question regarding Find Out. Could you give us an update on Find Out? Are you a director yet? What about the 5th test? What is it? And are the other 4 now in manufacturing? Could you help me understand why you valued it at more than £2 million and what the current commercial launch timelines are? Is there something special about these tests?
Okay, so Find Out, just by way of background, is a CDMO customer of ours that is developing a number of sexually transmitted disease tests. We're very excited about this as an opportunity. The sexually transmitted disease market is somewhere in the region of $14 billion and growing. And it's an area that continues to be significant unmet need. In terms of the products, clearly there's some commercial kind of confidentiality here. What I can say is that the products have successfully transitioned into manufacturing. The next phase of that is for Find Out to basically do the regulatory work to get those products to market. Abingdon will support on that in terms of it being a service that we'll provide. And in terms of the other opportunities, we're just in terms of additional tests. There are actually 3 additional tests that we're exploring with Find Out, and we're looking at ways in which we can work together to kind of bring those products to market as well. With regard to the valuation, that was really done on, obviously it's a negotiation in terms of the valuation of Find Out. It hit a number of milestones and basically reduced the risk. For example, getting the products to check, through tech transfer is a key milestone. and they'd also found out had also invested significant funds to date. So the valuation was based on, you know, an element of uplift of the investment that Find Out had done to date. Our investment was in lieu of technical transfer revenues, and as you can imagine, the actual cash cost to us was lower than the revenues, because clearly we make a margin on those revenues as a matter of course. So yeah, I guess to summarise, we're still continue to work with Find Out. We see a big opportunity for sexually transmitted disease self-tests, both in Europe, the UK, and also the US. And clearly, we've got some, you know, interesting routes to market that we're building for those products as well.
Thanks, Chris. One of the shareholders has said that Nalfia is very interesting, nucleic acid lateral flow immunoassays. The question is, are we involved in developing malaria and/or VL tests? And if so, could you give any details or timelines? And there's also a similar question that you might want to answer at the same time, asking the question of whether you're having placed a lot of emphasis on the lateral flow test molecular crossover. Do you have a lot in the pipeline in that respect? And will this help sales of PCRD?
Yeah, I'll answer that one, Paul. Thanks. I mentioned in the presentation that one of the areas of our developments is PCRD. PCRD, just for clarity, that is Nalfia, so nucleic acid lateral flow immunoassay. It's one and the same thing. So that is a product we sell to our customers. It's also the basis of various contract development projects that we're looking at, where, as I said in the presentation, we're combining the PCRD which exists with the molecular aspect of an Nalfia. So yes, it is something we're looking at, and as I said again in the presentation, we're looking at it both across human health and animal health. There are challenges with bringing PCR more to the point of need, in that generally there's a need to heat the system. That's the isothermal element of it. But we're looking at ways in which we can deal with that and manage that. And as I say, we've got various projects ongoing, which we'll report back on in due course.
Thank you. I appreciate you gave an update on your expansion plans into the US on slide 10, but we had a question that was asking about the fact that there's a lot of focus from Abingdon on the US market. Was the purchase of CS Life Sciences intended to accelerate customer or product access to that market, given their US links with RAF solutions? And what are your plans for expansion into the US?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the key opportunities with the acquisition of Compliance Solutions was its presence in the US. Compliance Solutions Group has around 100 customers, and you know, a significant minority of those customers are US customers. So that provides us with a great opportunity to do cross-selling. As I mentioned as well, you know, about a third of Abingdon's revenues historically have been from the US. So I think there's some really good opportunities to provide more services to our existing customers. So effectively increase the revenue per customer by offering them more services. And number one, and then number two, by having a presence in the US, I think, you know, and having a kind of commercial presence in the US, we can really kind of tap into what is a large and fast-growing medical device market.
A question on regulation. This seems to be a real blocker to commercialization. Could you briefly explain the regulatory process here, and in the EU and in the US, with emphasis on where the real obstacles are and how Abingdon are helping developers overcome them?
Yeah, I think the key here for us as a company and as a group is we now have an extensive regulatory offering to our customer base. So it's important that this sort of product does have regulatory approval, and it goes through the various testing processes to show that the product's fit for purpose. So rather than a blocker, I would see it now as bringing an extra string to our bow, in that we can help our customers navigate the regulatory approval processes, whether they're in Europe via the new IVDR regulations or the FDA, creating of technical files, submitting pre-submissions to the FDA, all that type of thing that is needed to be done. We can we can help our customers navigate that process. So I don't really see it as a blocker. I see it as more as a necessary process, and we can help do the whole of that, including the analytical services. Now that we've got the new lab being set up in Doncaster.
Thank you, Chris. There were a couple of questions just regarding director shareholdings and purchases. One was, why didn't the directors participate in the most recent raise? And then the second question was regarding close periods. Could you confirm what close periods director dealings at Abingdon has in its dealing policy?
Yeah, we didn't participate in the latest offering. There's a number of reasons. One, we've currently got about 65% of our shares not held in public hands. It's important for us to improve the amount of liquidity in the free float. Having said that, Chris and I between us own over 10% of the company, and we both invested £250,000 each in the last placing, and also, for example, I've bought shares in the open market, which we've announced. So I think we're very much aligned with shareholders. You know, it's not that we have a minor or trivial shareholding. We've got substantial shareholdings in the company, and so I think it's really for us a question of trying to increase the free float rather than bringing more shares into our ownership, where we own the order of 20 million shares already between us. So those, I think, hopefully that summarises the reason for that and illustrates that we are very much aligned with shareholders already.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you might be limited to what you've disclosed in the RNS today, but there was a question regarding the trading performance so far in this financial year, and also then how future performance is looking. Are we maintaining cash flow positivity?
Yeah, so I think just to maybe just follow up on the previous question first. So I think just around close periods, just to answer that as well, we follow the rules, obviously, around close periods in terms of timing of when we can trade and can't trade, and we're guided by our nominated advisor as well, and we obviously seek advice from them. In terms of trading performance, I think we're going to see a similar pattern to the previous 2 years, with a H1 H2 split, H1 being quieter than H2, and I think that will continue into this financial year, as we set out in the financial results statement. You know, the plan is continue to kind of look for strong growth in this financial year as well, and obviously, you know, one of the key things that we're really keen on is to see this cross-selling coming through across IVDology Compliance Solutions and Abingdon Health kind of legacy business as well.
Thank you. There's a congratulations on the Boots tie-up, and I appreciate you might be limited about what you can say without Boots' permission. But the question is, are there plans in the pipeline to get more of your own label products into Boots or other major retailers? What can you tell us?
Yeah, so as I previously mentioned, I think we're really delighted to build a partnership with Crest Medical and Boots. It takes time to build the level of trust, and also to understand, you know, where Boots, for example, strategy is going with regard to rapid testing. I think from an Abingdon point of view, really we want to be the lateral flow experts and to support, you know, the retailers such as Boots in expanding their self-testing product portfolios. You know, some of the activities that we're involved in are obviously we're sourcing innovative tests through our CDMO platform, Salistic being a prime example of that. But also we're sourcing products from elsewhere for Boots as well. We're validating them. We're ensuring that they're kind of fit for purpose. We're auditing the suppliers, whether that's, you know, going to different parts of the world and doing a full kind of audit of those products. So we're doing the packaging and supporting on the logistics. So there's an awful lot in that. I think it's a great model for us. We'd like to obviously deepen the relationship with Boots over time, but also it's a great model that we can use with other retailers, and I think particularly with European retailers going forward.
Thank you. Are there any customers using AppDX? Somebody asks. If so, could you give us any indication of how many? And do we still have an agreement in place with DCN to provide DCN customers with AppDX?
So AppDX is still really in a development phase. We are continuing to build the patent portfolio with regard to AppDX. As we set out in the placing, one of the key activities that we're looking to do is product development, and AppDX, we're looking for AppDX to form part of that to really differentiate these products in the market. So in terms of AppDX, the focus really is on supporting our own product development plans at this time. And in terms of the DCN relationship, no, that's really that no longer exists. We're very much focused on kind of keeping AppDX in-house and I guess leveraging the IP that we've built there in terms of our own product development.
Thank you. In January, you said we had 29 ongoing projects. How many do we currently have, and how many products have now transferred to manufacturing?
So we continue to work on a significant number of projects. I think we're not going to kind of update on a results by results basis in terms of this. It was done previously just to indicate the kind of turnaround that we've had from pretty much having zero non-COVID projects a couple of years ago to having a significant portfolio. In terms of the products that we're transitioning to manufacture, I think we highlighted 3 in the final results statement. Obviously, as I said, the key for us is to continue to kind of build that portfolio of products in manufacture. And I think that's really going to be a kind of key priority for the course of the next couple of years.
Thank you. Just turning to longer term plans, is there any long term intention to sell the company as you did with Cozart, Chris?
I think our plan is to continue to grow the company, to continue to create value. I think it can be dangerous to have a plan of trying to exit, because then you take the focus away from growing the company. So we're a public company, but our focus is on growth, both in terms of revenue and in terms of value of the company. So yeah, I think that's a succinct answer.
Thank you. Probably coming back to you, Chris Hands. The question is regarding house product development, and you touched on that on the slide. £3 million from the recent raise has been allocated to this. I know you gave 3 examples on the slide, but an investor asks, is there any more specific indication about what test you're looking to develop, why, and what kind of timescales?
No, we won't be more specific at this point for commercial reasons. Really, it's not sensible to announce what we're working on over and above the general outline that I've given. It simply gives advantages to our competitors. So we'll update as and when we can. I understand the interest from shareholders, but it's not sensible to talk about every development project we're looking at, other than to give an outline as we have already.
Yeah, understood. The next question is, are the EcoFlow cassettes now being offered to customers? And if so, what's the level of interest?
Yeah, again, I touched on that in the presentation. There's an awful lot of interest. We're at a stage where we can show physical samples to our customer base, and we're evaluating the actual units ourselves. So yeah, it's all progressing as planned. I think we said originally that we would have devices ready to show in September, which we did. So yeah, it's all going to plan, and there is a lot of interest, as you would expect, because of the massive amount of waste across the lateral flow industry. Generally, the plastic waste is very, very high.
Thank you. There's a question. Somebody spotted that you'd incorporated a new subsidiary, Abingdon Analytical Limited, rather than just continue providing analytical services through the PLC. Why have you done that?
Yeah, that was a good spot. So we incorporated that recently. We see a big opportunity for Abingdon Analytical as a dedicated analytical lab focusing initially on the IVD market. We think there's a gap in the market really for that sort of service. So we'd like to repurpose the Doncaster site, and we'd like to build out the team at Abingdon Analytical and for it to stand on its own 2 feet. So whilst it will be supported in terms of opportunities coming through IVDology, Compliance Solutions, and Abingdon Health, we'd also like that business to market itself and bring in projects independently. So that's really the reason to set it up as a standalone entity. And as I said, we see really good opportunity with that. We already have got a couple of new business wins recently, which are primarily analytical work, things like stability trials. So again, we sense there's a good opportunity to kind of build on that and expand that service, as Chris mentioned earlier, outside of lateral flow into other areas of the IVD market as well.
Thank you. You put an LTIP in place in December 2022. Are you able to disclose what the revenue and adjusted EBIT criteria need to be achieved in order for options to vest?
Yeah, I don't think we disclose that in our public information. I think all I'd say is that those are stretch targets in order to achieve those. Yeah, obviously we'd provide more information if those targets are met.
I've got a pre-submitted question on manufacturing and then also an additional one that's come in during the presentation. What is your current manufacturing capacity at Abingdon? How much of the capacity are we using? And what products are we actually making for commercial sale? And then a question came in asking whether putting a new lab in Doncaster impacts your manufacturing capacity. So maybe you could tackle both of those.
Yeah, so our manufacturing capacity is still in the region of kind of significant double-digit millions of lateral flow tests. So in the region of kind of 40 to 50 million lateral flow tests. We are not using anywhere near that level of capacity at the moment. So there is plenty of scope for us to expand. And as I said, that's one of the key intentions, is to expand that manufacturing volume over time. In terms of the products we're making, it's a really diverse range of products. So we make the pocket diagnostic range. We obviously manufacture a number of projects for CDMO customers that have been with us for a number of years. So the likes of Zoetis is a good example of that. And obviously we're introducing new products as well over time. I think the other use of the manufacturing is in technical transfer. So any technical transfer needs to do 3 batches. And obviously we do a number of those technical transfers at any one time. And that uses the manufacturing capacity, the manufacturing team as well, to actually produce those batches. I can't know if I answered all of the question.
Doncaster.
Doncaster. Yeah. So Doncaster continues to be a kind of second site for us, but we will also primarily use Doncaster for doing the analytical lab work, but it will also still be available as a second manufacturing site. The reason we acquired Doncaster was really during the COVID pandemic to allow us to have a second manufacturing site in case it was an issue in York. I think now we're kind of, let's say, through the pandemic, that's less of a risk, but we still retain the ability to manufacture products at Doncaster.
Thank you. Also, somebody is asking, are you going to consider any further acquisitions?
I think we will continue to look for opportunities to accelerate our growth in line with our strategy. We are an AIM-listed company. I think the ability to use paper for acquisitions is something that is a reason to be on AIM and is attractive. I think, however, our immediate priority is really the integration of the 2 acquisitions that we've just done. We need to simplify the back office across all 3 businesses now, number 1, and number 2, we need to look at getting maximizing those cross-selling opportunities. So I think acquisitions, yeah, definitely part of the strategy going forward, but I think in the short term we've got a lot of work to do in terms of integration.
Thank you. We've got some questions that came in during the presentation. One was just asking a question regarding the admin expenses. Obviously, you've got impressive gross profit, but there is, I think, 5 million of admin expenses. How distinct is the line between cost of sales and admin expenses? And the question, I guess this is where the auditors guide you, but are there admin expenses that could alternatively be viewed as cost of sales and therefore decrease gross profit? Also, what are the significant aspects of these admin expenses?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points. So I think from a cost of sales point of view, obviously it's anything to do with directly producing products or providing services. So that's how we allocate, primarily our labour between cost of sales and also admin expenses is on the basis as, are those people, directly providing, revenue, or are they providing, support? So I think, clearly that's a key area of focus during the audit. I think we have a consistent approach, importantly year on year, in terms of how we kind of look at those different aspects. And I think if you look at our gross profit, year on year, it's up, the margin is up to 60%. We're seeing that kind of revenue growth, drop down to the gross profit line, which is encouraging. And I think importantly, in a continued inflationary environment, we actually, I think, did a pretty good job in keeping our administrative costs down. They were lower than the previous year. And in an environment where we've been seeing kind of, double-digit inflation in certain aspects of the business, I think that's been a really encouraging sign.
Thank you. I warn you now, Chris, it may be you're not able to answer this question. It's a question regarding CS Life Sciences trading history, because obviously when the RNS was issued, you put in the performance on revenue and EBITDA for June 2022, June 2023. An investor was wondering about the performance of revenue and EBITDA for June 2024. I suspect, given that you haven't disclosed that, you may not be able to answer that question, but I thought we should at least address the shareholders' question.
Yeah, sure. It's just a timing issue in terms of the sign off of their statutory accounts. Obviously, they kind of have worked on a different timetable like solutions historically. So we've disclosed so far the audited numbers, rather than unaudited numbers. Clearly, there's a lot of work now going on integrating solutions into Abingdon in terms of finances, and obviously we'll be able to give a clearer picture on that.
Thank you. There is a question regarding the fact that you're manufacturing the loop and upfront tests. The question is, how involved do you end up being in assisting the sales process of these products after manufacture?
Well, we're always available to support and assist, and we're always really keen to do that. And I think that's something that we feel very passionate about, supporting our customers and getting their products to market. We have a kind of long history in the industry, and therefore have a really good network of contacts, Chris and myself and other people within the organisation. And so if we can open doors and make introductions and support in terms of getting products to market, we absolutely will do that. And certainly in both of those examples, I've had an active dialogue with kind of the leadership of both of those organisations, supporting them and getting their products to market and providing support to do that. So yeah, we as I said, we try and provide all the different pieces of the jigsaw. Some of that is formal in terms of the service proposition, but some of it is informal in terms of working with customers and supporting them and making introductions if we can.
I have one more question regarding treasury management and the finance income of 31k of interest. Given your cash balances over the year, is that a low number? Could you perhaps elaborate on the finance income number?
Yeah, I mean, we actively kind of manage our treasury balances, as you would imagine, in terms of putting cash on deposit where we can. I think going forward, we've obviously got a high cash balance now in this financial year. We do have cash on deposit now, gaining a decent degree of interest. So it's something that we continue to kind of consider on a weekly basis, really, in terms of what the cash requirements of the business is, and also what we're comfortable putting on deposit for, whether it's 1 month or 3 months or longer term. So yeah, it's absolutely part of our treasury strategy.
Thank you. At the beginning of the meeting, I did apologise for saying that there were some questions that we couldn't answer because of specific commercial arrangements, and some have come through in the questions during the presentation that you wouldn't be able to disclose because of confidentiality or commercial sensitivity. But that does end the questions that we have there, Chris. Chris Yates, if I could maybe hand over to you to give a short sort of summary and overview to leave us for our presentation today.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so firstly, thank you everyone for joining and for the questions as well. I think in summary, we had a really solid financial year ended June 24 in terms of commercial traction and also maintaining good cost control. Also, I think we've put some additional building blocks in with the acquisitions of IVDology and Compliance Solutions and the investment in the analytical lab, which provide us with additional growth opportunities going forward. So I think as a board, we're optimistic for the future, and I think the key target for us, as Chris had mentioned earlier, is to continue to grow the top line, keep costs under control, and move the business towards profitability and cash flow positivity.
Thank you both for updating investors today. Can I please ask investors not to close the session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Abingdon Health PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning to you all.